So we have this 2014 Buick Encore with the mighty Ecotec turbo, and it's running very poorly, and it's got a squeal. Now I've scanned it already, and I've got fuel trim code for running rich, but let's listen to the way this thing sounds. At first I thought it was a belt squeal. I tried resetting the fuel trims. I don't have any induction leaks here that I can see, but you can see how it's running so poorly. Now it's not squealing anymore, but it was squealing. So it's got a problem with this crankcase ventilation system. You can see how much vacuum it's building in the crankcase. That's air sucking past the rear seal or the front seal. So we got to replace this valve cover gasket to fix this. I mean, a little bit of vacuum in the crankcase is normal, but not that much. I'm going to put a gauge on it just for reference. So let's hook a vacuum gauge up to the dipstick tube. Wow. 5 inches of vacuum. Well, we'll compare that to the new valve cover once we install it. We're going to put a set of plugs in this thing because it's got over 200K on it and they've never been changed as far as I can tell. So here's the Dorman part number for this valve cover assembly. And there's a warning on it. It stops. It says stop when installing, check intake manifold for failure. And in the box with the valve cover are 2 instruction sheets, both of them in foreign languages. No English. Thanks, Dorman. Well, I'll research that. There's mentioned something about, let me see, I don't know what language that is. This looks like Spanish. This one looks French. Take the air induction system off, disconnect the mass airflow sensor, and as soon as you have this pipe off, put a cap over this or stuff a rag in there, because sure as hell it'll be like a magnet. You'll drop something in there, probably a 10 mil socket, and that'll be a bad day. And we're going to proceed by disconnecting and removing the coil pack. The customer said that they had changed the plugs about 20,000 kilometers ago, but we're going to have a look at them. I elected to remove the air induction, the rest of the air filter housing. It just rubber grommets here. There's 2 push pins here, 2 there, and 1 down at the bottom. Disconnect the clip from the mass airflow sensor. There's 2 little release tabs here in these little rectangular holes here. Pry away from the valve cover. Move the harness off to the back. Coil pack disconnected, and use compressed air to blow out the spark plug holes in the top of the engine before you start taking the bolts out. So the valve cover bolts are all E10s. We need the oil filler cap, and it says to replace the seal on the filler cap as well. Make sure the seal's okay. It's an O-ring seal, we'll check that. Any bolts missing? I don't think so. I think that's all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 bolts. Get a pry tool. So I used a panel removal tool to pry under the valve cover. Hopefully we can weasel this out of here without moving too many of these wiring harnesses. All right, there it is off. Let's have a look at the cams. This thing's got over 200,000 kilometers on it, which is impressive for one of these engines, but it's all highway mileage. Actually, the chain is pretty tight too. Goes to show you what good maintenance and highway driving does. So I'm on the Dorman website, typed in 264-968, and it has valve cover gasket sales flyer, valve cover gasket, French, Spanish, tech note, English, Spanish, and French. Let's see what this one says, because one of these is in Spanish and one is in English. We're replacing this. Check the intake manifold for a missing non-return valve. Failure of the intake manifold can cause valve cover PCV failure. The OE intake manifold can be replaced with Dorman OE fix offering part. Inspect the O-ring on the OE oil cap before using with this new valve cover. Check for a missing intake manifold non-return valve that may have damaged the PCV orifice diaphragm. Use a long cotton swab to wipe any excess oil from the PCV valve. And inspect the interior of the valve with a flashlight or borescope. If the non-return valve is not visible as shown in the illustration, then remove the intake manifold for inspection. So where is this? I better find out. So there's a location of that PCV check valve, and looking in there with the borescope, it's supposed to be right there. There's nothing there. So this thing needs an intake manifold as well. Oh joy, didn't plan on that. So there's the Dorman intake manifold, and I thought I'd have a look in the new manifold to compare it to the old one. That valve is right back here towards the back of the car. I thought it was on the side. So I'm going to set up the camera here so you can see the what it looks like. So you need a borescope with a 90-degree lens, and you need to look straight back towards the back of the intake manifold and slide the camera down, and you'll see either a white or orange valve. Hang on, let me get it set up here. Okay, you can see that orifice. There's no valve in there. Now let's have a look inside the new manifold. Okay, you can see the orifice there. So, definitely needs a manifold. So there's a better look at it. You have to put it in from the top and angle it towards the bottom of the manifold so that you can see that orifice is missing the check valve. So there's the intake manifold off. That little passage that you see is right down in there. Let me see if I can focus on it. No, it doesn't want to focus. but it's missing the check valve. The challenge is getting these little push clips off. There's a clip here, a clip here, coolant line. Got to take this, I think this is the wastegate solenoid here. Take that solenoid off, transfer it in the throttle body and transfer it. Clean the gasket surface. Fun. So there it is, back together and running. Runs much better now. I got to change the oil. Looking at the vacuum on the crankcase now, it's around 1 inch of vacuum. Before it was 5. And there's no more leak here. So we're going to run it till it's warm, and then we're going to drop the oil in it and change the oil. But that's it. Reset the fuel trims. Thanks for watching.